The story begins with Barnabas sharing the history of his family. When he was a little kid, his family left England. They brought their fancy business skills to Maine. They started a fishing business in this whole new place, and it became super successful. They even named the fishing town Collinwood. They were living in a big beautiful mansion called Collinwood. As Barnabas grew up, he even had a little pitch with a servant named Angelique, whom he'd known since he was a kid. But Angelique wanted more than just a little emotion. She was head over heels in love with Barnabas, and she wanted him to feel the same way about her. When he rejected her, Angelique, who had been practicing witchy stuff for a long time, now turned into a witch. She even put a curse on his parents. This curse made his parents die, which looked like an accident. Barnabas thought something fishy was going on with their deaths, like it was murder or something. He got super curious about dark magic and stuff. In the meantime, he also fell in love with a very nice woman, Josette. Angelique became weird and dangerous day by day. She was so mad that she cursed Josette as well. You know, that's what jealousy exactly looks like in person. She made Josette walk to this spooky place called Widow's Hill and jump off it. Barnabas was heartbroken about Josette's death. He couldn't bear the pain, so he jumped off Widow's Hill too. But guess what? Angelique wasn't done with her tricks. She turned him into a vampire, so now he had to live forever and suffer like forever. To make things worse, she showed everyone in Collinwood that he was a scary vampire. People got really scared and angry. They got together and locked him in a coffin, without any second thought or verifying anything. Everyone was trapped in Angelique's story, and they buried him for the town's safety. And who was watching all of this like it was some kind of show? Yep, Angelique. She then took over his business and every property. Now, after a really long time, he mistakenly woke up from his long nap. Well, what do you think? Will it be a huge mistake? I mean, waking up a vampire. Actually, a brutally tortured vampire. I don't think so. When Barnabas opened his coffin and got out, first he quenched his long deadly thirst by killing the workers, then moved towards the city. But he was in for a big surprise, because the whole 2 centuries are pretty enough to change the picture of the world. He couldn't even recognize the modern stuff. His family, his descendants, were in real trouble. Everything was a mess. And guess who was behind it all? The same witch who had locked him up in the first place. She was now the big boss of the town. Now we see Maggie, or probably she named herself so. She is practicing for her interview at Collinwood for the governess job. But when she sees a skiing poster, she decides to call herself Victoria Winters. I wonder why she kept on changing her names. Why is she hiding her true identity, or being spooky? Oh, and by the way, she looks a whole lot like Barnabas's lost love, Josette. Well, she also seemed a little hesitant when she saw 2 police officers at the station. Victoria steps in all old and ruined Collinwood, which once was an epitome of luxury and elegance. Inside, one of the servants welcomes her. Victoria is super interested in the huge mansion and all the old stuff in it. She spots a painting of a man named Barnabas and asks about him. Then, a lady named Elizabeth, who's like the boss of the family, shows up. Elizabeth talks to Victoria and does a quick interview. She tells Victoria about the family living in the house. There's Elizabeth, her daughter Carolyn, her brother Roger, and his son David. They also have a doctor named Dr. Hoffman living in the house to take care of David's mental state. David is an 8-year-old kid, and Victoria is supposed to take care of him. Victoria asks about David's mom, and Elizabeth explains that she sadly drowned at sea. Since then, David's been really upset and talks about weird things. David thinks he can talk to his mom, even though she's gone. Later, during dinner, we met all the family members. David shows up, dressed as a ghost, trying to give Victoria a scare, but Elizabeth scolds him to knock it off. Victoria, though, did the opposite, and tried to comfort David by saying that she also believes in ghosts. That night, as Victoria unpacks her stuff, she sees some ghost again. First, she thought, it's David, but when she got closer, who did she find? The ghost of Josette, the lady who looked a lot like her. She told her that he has awoken and then jumps in the middle of the floor. Of course, she meant Barnabas, the vampire. Barnabas somehow makes his way to Collinwood, barely surviving through the busy roads. There he meets a guy named Willie, and he has a lot to ask. He figures out that 4 members of the Collins family survived all these years. Barnabas uses his vampire powers to make Willie his servant, and they both go to see Elizabeth. Barnabas meets Carolyn and David, who quickly realizes that Barnabas looks just like the guy in the painting. Elizabeth saves the kids from the weird talk, and they both went to talk privately. Barnabas needed to prove to this boss lady that he is the actual owner of this house, and not any clown. He tries to impress Elizabeth, but she's already using one of his secret rooms for her crotcheting stuff. But when he shows his cards, Elizabeth gets stunned as she is now passing through a hidden passage that leads to a room filled with his family treasures. Barnabas says he wants to be part of the family and promises not to hurt any of them. He also wants to help the family get back to their former glory. Elizabeth agrees, but she says they have to keep it all a secret. Okay, maybe I would do the same. "Sorry, I can't share the treasures." In the morning, Barnabas gets to meet the rest of the family, but of course they didn't know they were gonna meet a vampire. So obviously, the meeting got awkward, but when Victoria walks in, Barnabas gets pretty surprised. He thinks it's Josette, but he quickly realized it's some other pretty girl with the exact face just like the love of his life. He politely greets her, and then asks Elizabeth to get the horses ready for him as he wants to visit the factories. What? Seriously? Someone please tell that guy. I mean, who uses horses to visit the workplace these days? Finally comes our witchy villain, Angelique, who now goes by Angie. She's the only one who messed up the Collins family business with the successful seafood company, Angel Bay Seafood. On that busy yet as usual pretty day, at least for her, she got the news that the people were mysteriously killed near the place where Barnabas' coffin was buried. So she very well knew he had escaped. Before he found her, she went to see him. Barnabas is really mad at her and threatens to expose her as a witch if she doesn't leave and spare his family and business. But she knew no one's gonna believe it because she has got a great reputation in town. She even knew all the tactics to tease him, so hurt him with sunlight. Later, Barnabas had to tell Elizabeth everything about his history with Angelique, and he's pretty sad and guilty about it. But Elizabeth encourages him to keep fighting and not give up against the lady who took his everything. Next day, Barnabas tried to start over everything. He used the family wealth to make his bungalow all shiny and new. This makes Angelique super mad. She has kept eyes on his every move, and of course she cannot be happy with this progress. Barnabas even manages to make the fishing boats that used to work for Angel Bay switch to the Collins cannery. Yup, by compelling him, doing his vampire things. One night, he went to see the doctor Julia Hoffman, who's a psychiatrist, who hypnotizes Barnabas to find out his truth. Well, now one more person knows he's a vampire. She hurries to talk to Elizabeth about it, but Elizabeth tells her that she already knows and they must keep his secret. On the other hand, she encourages her to study the vampire. Next day, Julia takes his blood, hoping to turn him human again. He's a vampire, right? How could a psychiatrist make him human again? For relationship advice, Barnabas went straight to Carolyn and asked her how he should befriend Victoria. So, acting upon her advice, Barnabas asks Victoria out for a walk so they can get to know each other. Meanwhile, Angelique sets a meeting with Barnabas as she's getting really worried because of Collins' progress. During their meeting, she asks him to sell the Collins company to her, but Barnabas says a big no to that. Angelique tells him that she's still in love with him and she's ready to spare everything if he gets back together with her. She's pretty good at seducing him, and they end up being together intimately. After the height of their intimacy, realizes he made a big mistake. He tells her that they can't be together because he doesn't love her, but Angelique threatens to destroy him. Still, Barnabas said he will decide, and he decides he has nothing to do with her, so leaves. On the other hand, Victoria seemed to have a nightmare, which is her actual childhood trauma. She has been able to see ghosts since she was a kid. One day her parents caught her, so they sent her to an asylum. She wakes up all uneasy as it still haunts her. Not just a nightmare, but she also sees the ghost of Josette again, who takes her to the chandelier and pledges for help. The ghost again jumps off the chandelier, just like Josette fell from the cliff, but Victoria was not able to understand what that ghost wanted. Meanwhile, Barnabas throws a fancy party to show everyone how important the Collins family is, and of course to make up for the past reputation. They invite the whole town, except Angie. Everything was quite perfect and fancy. In the middle of the party, Barnabas finds David, who's keeping an eye on his dad. His dad, Roger, was with another woman and stealing stuff like wallets from the guests' coats. He also refuses to admit that David is his son. This definitely broke the kid's heart, because he only has his father now who never paid attention to him. Moments later, he went straight to Victoria, who was standing alone, totally cut off from the party. She didn't want to hide her true self from Barnabas as she felt for him, so she told him about how she was able to see ghosts from childhood and how much she suffered at asylum, until one day she found an opportunity and escaped. Also that she feels like she knows Barnabas from long ago, and she's always felt drawn to Collinsport. Surprisingly, they were drawn to each other and kissed for a little moment, but they don't realize that Angelique has joined the party all by herself without an invitation and is watching them. Angelique is overwhelmed with jealousy, and her skin starts to crack. Barnabas rushes to find Julia because he wanted to be human as soon as possible to be with Victoria, but we discover that she never intended to help him. She's been taking his blood for herself, trying to become a vampire. Julia begs him not to harm her, but he attacks and drinks all her blood. With Willie's help, he manages to get rid of Julia's body and drops it into the ocean. Meanwhile, Roger must have overheard Elizabeth, as he's trying to find the secret passage that leads to the Collins family fortune. Barnabas catches him and holds him by the throat, giving him a choice: either stay and be a good dad to David or leave forever. Roger chooses to leave over his son and take some treasure. As he drives away, David watches him go with teary eyes. He was heartbroken, so rushes back to his room but accidentally bumps into a ladder which Willie is using to clean a mirror ball. The ball was about to fall on the kid, but Barnabas rushed with incredible speed and saved the child. Everyone is shocked seeing Barnabas as an inhuman entity, and a little fire catches its back as he didn't realize he was standing in the sun. He was stuck where Victoria runs away when he approaches her. Barnabas went straight to Angelique and demanded that she remove his curse. She offers him a glass of blood and makes a final offer: join her as a business partner and lover, and she'll spare the lives of those he loves. Otherwise, she'll lock him away again. Barnabas refuses again. But bro, Angelique uses her magic to tie him up and lock him in a coffin. Again, she leaves the coffin to an abandoned cemetery. How come David knows where he is and rescues him? Well, Barnabas needed the same answer, so David told him that his mother told him. They returned to Collinwood and learned that their office caught fire. Outside the mansion, Angelique arrived once again with the town people. Barnabas offers to take him as he is the one with vampire problems. His family has nothing to do with this. But he carefully attacks Angelique, which causes her skin to crack, revealing her as a witch to the townspeople. The Collins family, all ready to fight for their home and business, started attacking the witch, starting with Willie, who tries to stop her with an axe. Just take that down. I don't think it's gonna work. Okay, Elizabeth uses a shotgun. A good move but failure. However, Carolyn is revealed to be a werewolf. How? Well, a lot was going on there. Angelique confesses to having turned Carolyn into a werewolf when she was a baby and drowning David's mother because she was bored and wanted more misery in the Collins family. Angelique puts a spell on the house to attack Collins. She even tries to kill David, but his ghostly mother steps in and saves her son. She threw her away with a burst that results in Angelique banged with the chandelier, tore and trapped. She takes out her heart and offers it to Barnabas, claiming that she truly loved him, despite her ways being harmful. He rejected again, which caused a serious heartbreak again, and Angelique died. Barnabas then runs to search for Victoria, as David told him that his mother said she went straight to the cliff. This time, it wasn't due to any spell. She intends to jump off the cliff and wants Barnabas to turn her into a vampire so they can be together. But of course, being a vampire was a curse itself, which he didn't want for his lover, so he refused. Victoria knew how to manipulate him, so jumped off. Having no choice, he bit her in the middle of fall, turning her into a vampire. True love isn't easy to find. If you have that one beloved, keep them close to your heart. Thank you for being part of this story. Take care and stay tuned for the next story.